Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Mark Groves Podcast. Today, I'm coming at you with a special, never done before episode where I have a guest teacher who is teaching on their own, and that guest is my incredible wife, Kylie McBeath. Now, Kylie is one of the most profound teachers in the space of relationship. She's also for women. I mean, gosh, it's the insights she has are incredible, and her and I co-authored the book Liberated Love together, and I continue to be a student of hers as our relationship is, of course, a vehicle for so much learning. And where I used to be afraid of being with a powerful woman, now I'm absolutely grateful that I am, because, your relationship really offers this unique reflective material, let's call it, the triggers, the things that come up that allow us to be better, to grow, to change, but also to stand in ourselves, stand in our needs, our desires, our wants. I'm so grateful that I get to have a partner who is curious about change as well, takes responsibility for herself, is introspective, is courageous, and has her voice to share what she's experiencing with us and in me. And being parents has opened a whole new avenue of education, let's call it. So I'm really excited that she's going to be speaking to you directly about the maturation and healing process for women. Now, this is part of a special series which you guys have loved. I mean, the first one was on the father wound and how it impacts both men and women in relationship, how it shows up in our patterns, etc. And then also I did one on the mother wound and how that shows up in our relationships as both men and women. And of course, I will be teaching the next episode that's solo will be me teaching on the maturation process for men and healing these things for men. Both of these episodes could be very applicable to you, and I really am so excited for her to share her brilliant wisdom in the modality and the frameworks in which she sees things, because she's so good at that. So I'm excited. If you don't want to miss any future episodes, because we just keep coming at you with more learnings, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you don't miss any upcoming episodes, because you wouldn't want to miss the maturation process, would you? And hitting subscribe helps support the channel, gets it into more people's eyes and ears, so we can all grow together and create a world where relationships are thriving. And that means we're all healing and crushing it. So without further ado, here is my incredible, brilliant, amazing, sexy, hot, beautiful wife, Kylie McBeath.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Mark Groves Podcast. It's not Mark, it's his plus one, other half, wife. And yeah, what an honor it is to be in this space with all of you. I've only ever done a podcast with Mark on here a couple of times, and this is the first time I've been invited to do a solo episode, which feels like a really big honor to be invited into this space to talk with all of you. In some ways, it feels even more intimate to be given this airtime. And for that, I'm so grateful, because as many of you know, I'm about 18 and a half months into this motherhood journey of raising our beautiful son, Jasper. And as he individuates a little bit more, like he has more autonomy, can walk around, can talk, it creates more space for mom to show up, to think, to create, and have these conversations. So with that, thank you so much for being here today and listening to this pod. I'm really excited to talk to you about the Maiden Voyage and the journey women must walk in order to restore their connection to themselves, to their soul, and to their inner authority, so that we can stand tall, so that we can protect, preserve, and nurture life in the way that, well, one, the planet needs, our children need, but also women need. So for this episode, I'm going to be talking about the four main blocks I see women face when we're at this threshold between maiden and mother. And I use these words maiden and mother from an archetypal perspective. It's not like a biological mother. It's more so movement into maturity, into embodied woman, into mother. And archetypally, mother is that which nurtures, protects, and guides. So when we're in that mother energy, we're able to nurture, protect, and guide those who are younger, and also for ourselves. So the 4 blocks that I see commonly that women face, and also that I've experienced personally when it comes to crossing this threshold, are mother, money, men, and the masculine. These are the blocks where I see a lot of women get stuck, suspended, and it's like, what is preventing us from moving forward in our development? What is preventing us from standing in our truth, in our embodiment, in our inner knowing, and deepest levels of congruency? All of these blocks, mother, money, men, and the masculine, are intertwined. When we work on one block, we work on all blocks. That's how this whole block functions. And there's many other blocks, but I've kind of distilled them down into 4 where I'm like, okay, these ones, when we face these ones, when we look at them deeply with intention and start to unravel how they've impacted our lives, we can kind of create more space, more energy, and more agency to continue the forward movement into maturity. So for the first one, mother. Mark, I know, has done a series on the mother wound and the father wound, so I'm going to kind of weave that into this conversation today. But the mother wound is, for women, the pain rooted in the relationship we have with our mothers that is passed down generation to generation, and a consequence of being born into patriarchal cultures. I hear some people say like, oh, there goes the P word. And it's like, yeah, we got to bring patriarchy into this, because when we look at the water we're swimming in, right? For so many women, we've internalized, this feeling or felt sense that we're broken, that there's something wrong with us. When really, like, when we examine not just the fish in the water, but the water we're swimming in, we're like, oh, well, when we lived in under patriarchy for thousands of years, where women have been denigrated, objectified, belittled, and placed in this powerless, less than position, of course, we're going to internalize these narratives that we are less than. And of course, that's going to have an impact on the way we relate to ourselves and to women and to the feminine and to mother. And a lot of these wounds and the pain of being born a woman under patriarchy, and in my experience, what I've witnessed is like, we keep all of this pain directed in our mother line, right? So we have this pain that we go back and forth, mother and daughter, and then it gets passed on if women don't heal it. And it's like, okay, we really got to look at this. And if you've heard me talk about the mother wound in my own work, I'm not here to blame mothers. Mother blame, not interested in that conversation. It's not productive, and it's not going to support us, because it's like, yes, we can acknowledge the pain that has maybe been passed down, and also as a result of the relationship we have with our own mothers. And we don't have to remain in the victim spot. We don't have to constantly relive it and continue to play out our wounds, because again, that's what's keeping us from moving forward into maturity, into embodiment, into agency, into sovereignty. When we stop at this block and we look at it, it's like, oh, okay, I see how living in this culture under patriarchy has impacted my relationship to the feminine and my relationship with mom. And the mother wound can manifest in so many different ways, like not wanting to take up too much space, not wanting to threaten anybody, emotional caretaking, competitiveness with other women, judgmental, gossip, self-sabotage. And I think the biggest one that I want to talk about in regards to this conversation is the double bind that some daughters under patriarchy feel, where it's like, I want to take up space. I want to step forward. I want to step more onto my path and into my soul's calling. But I'm afraid that if I take up too much space, that if I liberate myself from these belief systems, from this protective armor, that I'm going to trigger my mom, maybe her grief, her rage from not having the same access to a different path. And, or, not only just the fear of maybe triggering some emotional debris for mom, but also the very real abandonment that it may cause when you ruffle the feathers, when you say like, hey, I'm no longer going to stay small. The survival instructions, when I look at my own experience with my mother line, it's like the survival instructions that was passed down to me was like, stay small, stay quiet, be the good girl, be the father's daughter. And that way you can stay safe. And it was like, you know what? For the women in my lineage, those narratives mattered. Like, that's what kept us safe. And so when we look at this double bind, it's like, not only are we maybe rocking the familial boat and ruffling, the status quo of the way women operated in our family systems, but we're also shaking the mother line and being like, okay, thank you for getting me here. But now there's enough safety in my system to rewrite the script, to step out of smallness, to step out of these survival narratives. And that's the work I get really excited about with women, when we're like, okay, thank you, lineage. And now it's time to move forward. And now we come back into our bodies. We come back into right relationship with our instinct, our intuition, what we know. Okay, moving on to the next one. Money. Ooh, the money talk. Another big block that I see a lot of women having to navigate when we're at this threshold of moving into maturity is the money block. A few ways this can manifest for women, and what I've seen in my work, and also, what I've seen in personally is like this damsel in distress roles, like help me, save me. I'm waiting for my knight in shining armor. I'm waiting for something to come and like just make this all go away. Or we feel resigned, frozen, shut down in relationship to money. And or maybe we're like the hamster on the hamster wheel. It's like go, 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 go. I gotta achieve, I gotta make this money because that's how I source my value, my worth, and my safety in this world. For many of us that have found ourselves in that hamster wheel, that leads to burnout and exhaustion because it's not in alignment with life, with the rhythms of life. We're not meant or designed to go, 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 go. However, money is a very real thing in this world, and we need it in order to survive. My nervous system loves money. I've had to do a lot of work to increase my capacity to hold that truth of like, yeah, when I have money, I feel resourced. I feel safe. I can relax. I can soften. And that's a good thing, right? And that's a really good thing. So we have to look at all of the narratives we have around money. Maybe the narratives our mothers had around money, or our family system had around money, and maybe culturally, and what it means to have money, to not have money. One of the pieces that I had to work through, and one of the things I see in a lot of my clients, especially women who are entrepreneurs, is they have this imprint of, if I receive this money, then I must give all of me away. I must give it all and all and all. Like they must have access to all of me. And it's like, whoa, that's a really old codependent narrative of like, in order to be nurtured and cared for and taken and receive this money, to receive this nurturance, I need to give everything and all of me away. You need to have 100% access to me. And it's like, first of all, that's not sustainable. Second of all, that isn't deeply loving, because when we can show up resourced in our capacity and have boundaries and limits, we model what it looks like to receive in integral ways for ourselves and with others. And that's a big imprint that women are being invited to heal, of like, I can receive this without needing to give all of me away. I can receive this and understand my limits around giving all of myself away, my energy, my body, my access. And it's like, no, we can place limits around that and increase our capacity to receive more by giving less of who we are away, less access to our energy fields, and more, just value exchange based off what it is that we're offering. And of course, there's a lot to be said around what it means to be in integrity with our business and our pricing, and also exploring our nervous system in regards to that. But that's a whole different tangent. And I'm not going to go down that road, because the block I really, in exploration of money is like, for so many of us, we've been sourcing this safety and security through men, through our family system, at the expense of our own voice, at the expense of our own needs. And money is a key component of building that self-trust, of building that competency within self, so that we have the agency to make choices that are aligned with our own soul, with our own path. And money is a big piece of that pie for us. That's the second block. The third block is men. Father, partner, men, teacher, God, priest. Again, the father on the pedestal, right? Under patriarchy, the father has been lifted into the sky. And for many women under patriarchy, we want to be the good daughter, proving that we're enough, that we're worthy, that we are deserving of this love, of this unconditional love. And I will never forget, I was 24, fresh out of a divorce, and I went to go see a shaman in Sedona, because that's what you do when you're fresh out of a divorce at 24. You go see shamans in Sedona. And she said to me, she's like, Kai, stop seeking the unconditional love of your father. You're not going to get it. And I was like, whoa. And it just hit me so hard in the heart, because I was like, well, I'm the firstborn. I'm the good girl. Of course I'm going to get it. Like, I've been seeking it my whole life, and I've been listening to him, and I've been trying. And it's like, yeah, but at the expense of your own truth at the expense of your own well-being. And it's like, of course, that little part of us, that younger part is like, really wants to be seen, really wants to be safe, really wants to be loved. And it's like, stop seeking that externally. Like, it's time to find that within yourself, in relationship to yourself, but also like from other people who can actually show up and give you what it is that you're desiring at this time. So for a majority of my life, when I was stuck at this threshold between maiden and mother, I had outsourced so much guidance to the men in my life. To Mark, my partner, like when I was in this stage before we broke up and I went on a whole descent journey, which we'll talk about again at some point, I had placed my father's wisdom, my partner's wisdom above my own. And this was a big piece of returning back home to myself, was dismantling that inner hierarchy of placing man above me, man above my own intuition, my own instinct, and getting back into right relationship. Another big component here that I see, and it's, again, when I think about women in the dating world and this desire for union, it's so beautiful. And companionship, our greatest longing for union and for love is our deepest vulnerability. It's why we find ourselves in relational dynamics where we're treated less than, or we're tolerating unsavory, less than ideal circumstance, or tolerating an emotional abuse, gaslight, whatever it might be. We find ourselves in these positions because there's these parts of us that are so beautiful and they long for union, they long for love. And we stay in those places because we believe like maybe this is as good as it gets. Right? For me, I didn't know that there was anything outside of a codependent dynamic. Like, I didn't even have a relationship blueprint that looked different. I was like, this is just how relationships are. You hold back, you withdraw, you disconnect from your needs, you kind of lose yourself, but you're sourcing safety and security. So it's fine. It's just like, this is the way this transactional dynamic is going to work. And it's like, yeah, but that's not what we're after. And especially if you're listening to this conversation, it's like, we're not after that. We're not after these transactional relationships. We're after deeper levels of intimacy. And in order to cross this threshold into maturity, we have to examine our relationship to men and what it is that we're sourcing from men and at what expense to self. So for me, that's when I took my man talks. I stepped away from dating, seeking, sexting, all of it, to really explore what my relationship to the masculine and men in my life was. And for me, I was sourcing so much validation from the male gaze, from being this ideal partner, desired partner. And I really needed to look at, okay, wow, I'm sourcing a lot through men at the expense of a deeper connection to myself. And luckily, through that man talks and intentional container of sacred pause, I was able to explore the deeper roots of these patterns, which are based in survival. Again, like when we go back to our motherline, it's like, well, I've relied on men for safety and security in my motherline for hundreds and thousands of years, not on myself. When we step out of relationship with men intentionally and stop trying to find that union, we can find our deeper union with ourselves, with our own soul, with the earth, that allows us to actually come into inner congruence so that we can find our partner who can meet us in these ways, which is really, what it is that we're after. The last block that I see a lot of us, women specifically, face when it comes to crossing this threshold into deeper levels of maturity, embodiment, and intimacy with ourselves is our own inner masculine. This one was a little more hidden for me. I didn't realize how out of balance I was until I was in a container and we had to do this practice, this exercise. Very simple. When you get out of the shower, put on lotion for 5 to 10 minutes. Take your time, move slow, nourish your body. And I was like, yeah, not a problem. The first couple of times I did that, I got out of the shower and I was like, okay, I'm going to put lotion on. I'm going to take my time. And just this like inner voice came up and was like, this is ridiculous. This is stupid. This is a waste of time. Why don't you go do something productive? Like, just like hammering myself. And I was like, whoa, what is that? And why can't I just slow down and be with this experience? And it was because this like inner masculine, this part of me was dominating, controlling, and didn't want me to slow down, wanted me to go, 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 because that's how I had operated for a majority of my life. I was disconnected from my feminine wisdom. I held it below, like my instinct, my body, my feelings, my intuition. It was like, let's keep that underground, disconnected, because that's not really necessary or needed here or welcome. And so coming back into balance between the masculine and feminine was a big part of this journey of being able to honor, to create enough internal safety to reconnect with my intuition, with my instinct, with my body again. Because for so long, I had been overriding all of that. I'd been gaslighting it. And I had been just going because I didn't have the capacity to slow down, to sit with it, to be with it. And so much of this journey in crossing the threshold into maturity, into mother, inner mother, and archetypal mother is internal safety. And to feel this felt sense of safety after not feeling safe for so long is a tender process, is a long journey. And it's almost like, after a long, dark night, a lizard comes out and it's like thawing out in the sun. And that's what it feels like to me. It's like, ooh, it's been a long, dark, long winter. And it's like, I need to come out into the sun and I just need to thaw my nervous system, grieve all of the things that I need to grieve, didn't receive, deeply needed and wanted, and grieve all of that so that I can validate, hold, and be with this experience for my younger parts, but also to reparent, to nourish and nurture myself in a way that creates a deeper level of trust with self. And that's what so much of this journey of crossing that threshold is like restoring the trust we have with ourselves. And a big piece of that is coming back into right relationship with our anger, with our own sympathetic charge. For women under patriarchy, we've learned to accommodate. We've learned to people please. We've learned to fawn in order to survive. And this pattern, while necessary, and for some parts of the world, still very necessary in order for survival, luckily, at least for me and my experience and many of the women I'm working with, is there's enough safety and capacity now to move back into right relationship with our sympathetic charge, with our fire, with our anger, and with our voices, to take a stand, to hold a higher bar of integrity with how we treat ourselves and how we treat each other and how we treat the world. And that's what embodied women do. We hold a higher bar for healing, for integrity, not just for ourselves, but for all of life. So how do we do this? Increasing our capacity to feel, to be with, is so much of this getting into balance with our inner masculine and inner feminine, of creating that safety so that we can reconnect with these deeper parts of ourselves that we've had to disconnect from. How do we do this? That's always the next question. Okay, great. I see and I'm aware of these blocks that are preventing me from moving forward. And I'm using the word block in this conversation because I think it just makes sense. Although these are the main areas in my experience that create this friction for us. And this benevolent friction, we can turn towards it and we can use this friction to ripen ourselves, to come more alive, to remember, instead of collapsing under it. It's how do we resource and find the tools, the awareness that we need in order to get back into right relationship, in order to explore our relationship to mother, money, men, and the masculine. For me, so much of this journey has been this healing journey, and the how has been awareness. Awareness has been really key, is oh, now I'm aware of the mother wound. And now I can actually see how that's been operating in my life. And I can kind of unpack it and create a little more distance, where before I was stuck in it. It was oh, I can see it now. So let's work with it. The next component after awareness is how do I increase my capacity? So how do I understand the nervous system? So some somatic tools, some somatic literacy, so that I can start to gauge and track my own nervous system moment to moment and build this level of self-attunement that is necessary in order for me to find my edges, to name my edges, and then to resource in ways that allow me to move beyond where I have historically not felt safe to move beyond. Myth. Oh, I love myth. We must return to myth. There's a reason why Women Who Run with Wolves by Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes has sold millions of copies, and it's because our soul needs myth. There's these mythopoetic archetypal journeys and maps that are available to us in myth that reach parts of us that the logical linear mind in writing styles and education can't reach. And so weaving in myth, within sisterhood and connection is what really allows women to finally trust this journey forward, to trust this maturation process, where in a culture, the maiden is celebrated, the youth, the young is like propped up and like, this is everything. And it's like, actually, there's so much more. And actually, that's just keeping us small, stuck, and stagnant and focused in the wrong direction, which is changing ourselves and being at war with the feminine and female and woman and body. It's like enough of redirecting our energy in those ways. And instead, let's direct them down and in and reconnect to something that's more life enhancing, enriching, and alive and well. And so that's what really jazzes me up on the planet at this time is like, how do I support women in coming back into integrity with their own bodies, with their own beings, with their own souls? Because when women heal and when women are standing in their inner authority and agency, I feel like I can exhale. I feel like I'm like, whew, okay, we got nothing to worry about. Women are remembering, and they're going to hold this bar higher so that the whole planet heals. And that's not to say that men don't play a role, because they absolutely do. But what I'm saying is when women remember and cross this threshold into inner authority and remembrance, some powerful shifts happen. So if any of this conversation is resonating with you and you're like, I want to go deeper, I have a short, very short 4-part series, because I'm a mom, where we're going to explore these threads, mother, money, men, and the masculine in more deep detail. So if you'd like to be guided and supported, go to the link in the comments section, save your spot, and we will go there, and we will cross this threshold that's been waiting and hungry for us to cross for a long time. Thanks for being a part of this conversation. Thanks for listening. And thank you to Mark for having me and inviting me onto the pod. As always, such a pleasure to hear from each of you. Take what resonates, leave the rest, and I look forward to our next conversation, solo or with Mark. Much love.